for someone who's wanting to be a good ally, it's nice that they have the want, but they also have to have some knowledge, and they would gain that knowledge by reading deep guidelines on what it means to be a good coordinator, how you can be a good listener. It's about you assisting people living with dementia to get their wishes met and assisting us rather than leading us. I don't want to be led by the nose. I want to be assisted to drive what I want.
I think we all have different views of what an ally is at the moment. An ally at the moment is probably, for me, would be somebody essentially only is invited to the table. It's not somebody that is at the table necessarily. They would have to be invited. Well-intentioned people at times, really well-intentioned people can come, but they actually don't end up as your allies because they don't actually meet, I think, the vision that's perhaps unfolding or being held at a particular time.
When they are assisting, that they have a clear idea, not only of what assistance means, but what, say it's a meeting, if it's a meeting they're assisting with to get our voices heard, they have a clear idea that they know to give breaks at certain times and to get to know the participants and their needs, so that they're very clear in detail, and keeping it short and simple so that people are not overly tired, but using the help cards, like I want to speak, and giving a safe space, creating a safe space that people, whether they're quiet or whether they're used to being in meetings, that everybody's voices are heard. And that is not as easy as it sounds.
Having a belief that people with dementia can still do things. Obviously, there's things they can no longer do, but they're capable of things, learning new things, even though it's a bit harder. So it's having somebody that believes in you, somebody that will back you on the way, somebody that's a buddy or a mentor. And again, that builds up the confidence, because most people lose their confidence after a diagnosis, and you need somebody to build it up brick by brick until you reach whatever stage you're going to be at.
I think when you get a diagnosis of dementia, you lose, in my opinion, you lose your freedom to be you and your restraint. Whereas being an activist and a campaigner, I felt I was given a license to be free and be Agnes, and that my voice was being heard the first time since my diagnosis of dementia. And today that license to be free is the freedom of choice that everybody has, and you should not be, just because you've got a diagnosis of dementia, does not mean that you have to stick with one company of people. You should have a choice and be able to be a member of lots of different groups, and because each group gives different things to you. You can have your campaigning group, and then you can have maybe a group where you've got similar ideas, and you join and you be part of that group, and you can still campaign, but you still need your allies to be able to be a member of every group. And that's why I like the deep network, because it consists of many groups and you can join as many as you like. And that is my freedom to be free.
Freedom is wrapped up in some of the thoughts that I guess I have around autonomy and what autonomy means. And I operate that autonomy for me is very much about what I seek to achieve in my life. But it's a rationale that's rooted in my need for autonomy, my need not to have people telling me how to live my life. And that for me is what autonomy is really about. And I think James and Agnes are both brilliant examples of what happens when you, in Agnes' case, get your own personal assistant that works for you.
I was looking for something for a couple of hours yesterday. I didn't find it. What I did find was articles I've written in the past, and one of them I read was when you're diagnosed at that time, you lost your human rights. You weren't free to do this or free to do that. And it was a big step to think, I'm still me, I can still do things, I can still influence people. So being free to, because when I was diagnosed, people wouldn't ask you the time off your watch. They just did to you. So you got the freedom to say what you want. You must be free to express your own opinion without worrying about it upsetting or harming them. I don't mean bad things, but just be choices. Again, I'm going back in time, but people became aware of you that you could talk. Well, people with dementia were never asked to talk because people thought they couldn't do it. So you're asked to meetings, but nobody appreciated the fact that you maybe got up at 5 or 6 in the morning, a cold winter's morning. They didn't appreciate the fact that you'd maybe away from your house 12 or 13 hours, away in the morning, back after midnight. And again, it didn't. Sometimes you'd maybe go to a meeting and they'd list the contributors, and if people with dementia were listed as people with dementia, you weren't given a name. And I found that after meetings, people would just dump you. Once they got you there, you gave your talk, you were thrown out the door, left to make your own way home, and no thought we could manage it or not, or the trouble that you've gone to attend to them. And again, this is all for nothing, it's all free. And again, quite often I was at meetings, maybe 30 people, everyone was getting a wage to be there. I was getting nothing. So only recently people started to appreciate it. So it's good to be appreciated. I went someplace and it'll come back to me. And the lady took us to a cafe. She says, I'll have to go do something, but say, order what you want, tea, coffee, cakes, as much as you want. Then after it, she took us for lunch. I mean, that was the best appreciation I ever had. I don't ask for that. Usually a cup of coffee and a bun. So that person showed their appreciation, they valued their contribution. Sometimes I felt used like an old rag and tossed aside.
People living with dementia, it's more important that we are hydrated and that we are fed on a regular basis, or we'll get hangry, we'll get confused, and we do not give of our best. And so not only is it being appreciated and being courtesy to offer these things, but as James said, I've been away all day. And I remember one day in particular, and it was for a university, and I was rushed after the thing just about lunchtime, and I travelled a long way. It was in England, and I was put on a train and given, I think it was a mug of cup, one of the cardboard thingies of soup. And I was trying to hold that, get on the train and what have you. That is not showing appreciation. That was not showing thought before I would get there. And I didn't have the ability to think the whole trip through. I was thinking getting there safe, but I thought there would have been time for lunch and it would have been provided, and then I would have got home. And I never done my homework, but neither did the professionals. And that's when I realised, as Jane said, that it's very important. But not only do they feed back how well we've done when they asked us to do something or not well, but it's also good to allow us to feedback what did not work or what worked well, because how else will they learn?
People want to think at the high level of stuff rather than how do you pick somebody up from a train station? How do I know it's the person that's looking for me? Will they send me a photo? That kind of thing is not what's thought about. It tends to be much more, what do you need when you get there, rather than how are you going to get there. And so I think there's a whole sort of level underneath that high-end stuff that needs to be dealt with to ensure that for the organisers, their event is successful. Because if I arrive totally stressed out, I ain't going to give my best.
And it was Colin Cunningham from Hammond Care reminded me yesterday that they learned from me to any expenses to have the money and pay it on the day, and let the professionals pick up the hassle of going through universities to get it, or there is hassle putting in forms, waiting in finance and what have you. But we live on a very small budget and we don't handle money very well. So, but it's better to make sure. And I attended Europe a lot in my campaigning, and I lost lots of money because I kept forgetting to put my expenses in.
Welcome somebody, especially if they're new, sort of try and budget them, as I say, is liquid and a drunk tea cake when you arrive. Having somebody near them so they can explain things, because there are terms that we use that these people have never heard before. First of all, again, make sure they get there. I forgot that. That's important. But some people might not travel well, might be unable to use public transport. And to make sure they not only get there, but they get home safely. And again, have leaflets and pamphlets ready to offer them. I don't say give them. Say, look, do you want to read these? I don't want to read them, that's fine. Because too many can be overwhelming.
You make your plans and you prepare what you want to do, but a good facilitator is able to read whoever's round the table and be flexible. Some days it's not as easy because people are having a bad day or they are having different issues, and you need to be able to read. I think a good facilitator will have someone else so that they can say, can you sit beside this person? Can you help? So it takes the pressure off when you've got a buddy facilitator. But being flexible and not being too precious of an agenda, keep your agenda small and manageable, because everybody's attention span is different. Everybody's ability to listen and hear and then process an answer and get it out. So pace is very important at these meetings so that people have time to process things and then answer. Plenty of little small breaks. It's good signage so that they can get to the toilet and find their way back. And it's asking the right questions before the meeting. Do you want, when you're going to the toilet in a strange area, do you need someone to assist you getting back? It just it takes the strain off your brain, for want of a better way.
A good facilitator should make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. Because quite often, maybe you say you're talking about buses, and and you put your card up, and the facilitator should make a note of who's next to talk. So sometimes you find that before your turn, somebody comes in with a brand new twist, say like talking about aeroplanes, then everybody comes in about aeroplanes, and you're left, and you still want to talk about buses. This has happened a lot, even recently. I've been wanting to contribute, and it hasn't happened, even though I'd put my card up. Because people sometimes talk without putting the card up and waiting their turn. Now, I know it's you've got to try and get them quickly, because this is what I'm showing just now. I'm forgetting within seconds. But obviously, it'd be impossible to do perfectly. But you do your best, and you try and keep a system, whereas people, and I'm at meetings, as if I chair them, well, I don't do that any longer, but I always make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. And at the end, I used to go around every single person, one by one, to anything you want to ask or say, so round the whole room, so that anybody that wanted to speak would have had a chance.
We can be emotional, and our emotions can be quite vulnerable. And quite a few times, because I haven't been given a chance to speak, and have changed, maybe the subject matter has changed a wee bit and what have you. And I felt a hurt, and then an anger, and then I have to talk myself out of it and say, that wasn't personal and wasn't meant. And I think a good facilitator, if they're aware of that, you can head it off at the pass by doing as Jane said and say, if you didn't get a chance to speak, leave a comment in the chat box or speak to us later so that you can talk your emotions through, and it's not left to linger and fester, and then you say, I'm not going on that meeting ever again. So that is another thing that we can be aware of. But it's not all about good facilitators. I think too there's something about people who want to participate in meetings, etc., being aware of a lot of things too, because it is for a lot of people, I know for me, I'd never been at meetings like these before, and it's just different. And the terminology that people can use is like another language to you, So it's not only the facilitators to be aware of it, but almost something like having a conversation before the meeting to make the person who's going for the first time to be aware that these things can happen. And I think James is right, a buddy or a mentor or someone who can just keep a gentle eye on you and whisper in your ear, did you understand that? Acronyms are a no-no, and they're constantly using them. So yeah, there's lots of different things, but above all, I think a good facilitator, an ally, it's good to be compassionate and kind to yourself as well as others. We won't get it all right, and like life, we never get it all right, and it's just seeing that and just trying the best you can. That's all we can hope for. But honest sharing and telling us what worked and what didn't work. That's why I like the follow-up, and not many people do follow-ups. You know, how was that for you, especially if it's your first meeting and what have you, you know? So, yeah.
I've got three things there. I hope I can remember them. One is, when I was chairing meetings, I would say, are we all finished in that subject? And that gave MD that was waiting to talk about that subject to do it before he moved on. Another thing that Iris was involved in this, we did in the Scottish Men's Work Group, we spent months preparing a welcome pack, you know, explaining lots of things to people. You know, as Agnes said, acronyms and other things. And another thing we used to do is go and visit the person before they came to the meeting.
Yeah.
If they didn't want a visit, that's fine. But if they wanted a visit, at least when they came, they knew a friendly face and they could ask their questions beforehand. So I think that was important, to make contact so they don't come in to a strange meeting full of people who don't know. I've just remembered something else. It fills me with pride and it makes me feel good when I think about it. That when we used to go up to Aberdeen, there used to be about 60 people around a lot of tables there. And Agnes was at the door greeting every single person, a great big smile, a big hug. And I thought that was terrific. We'd been met as if you were a valued customer.
And that was one of the hardest jobs for me, was to meet people, remember their names and that. But I took pride in being given that job.
Researchers should stop writing papers in their name and acknowledge that often in research they are scribes. They are not the authors. Because what happens is they become authors of my words, or authors of Nancy, or authors of James, rather than learning from us. I think we need to work in partnership with research, where we're seen as co-authors of papers. Then maybe we can go somewhere with what research is.
One of the dangers of the Scottish Dementia Working Group a way back was to your health, because you laugh so much you come out with sore ribs. It was great. We didn't set it aside, but during the meeting there was always wisecracks and jokes, and as I said, you come out with ribs sore, you laugh that much.
I've found that everybody has a different sense of humour, and everybody's type of fun is different. That's what makes us all so unique, right? But I like to be able to choose what meetings I go that suits me. So it's like going to the movies or going to the theatre. Not everybody chooses the same play or the same whatever music, because we've all got different tastes. But it's good to be able to choose the type of humour and the type of fun things that you want to join.
And you've got to watch about being available but not too available. Maybe an email is better than a phone call, because you could be middle of something, like eating your dinner, you don't want it to get cold.
And I think James reminded me of something, and I think it's gone from my brain too, is that being very clear and getting your boundaries set. You know, like if you work, or not work, but if you can volunteer or be an ally, but you've got another job, you've got family, you've got other things, being very clear that I'm available on Monday morning. You know, I do not take phone calls or emails after 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock if your kids are coming in from school. But just setting your boundaries, that's okay. Because I think people with dementia like to know where they stand.
The facilitator really needs to be agendaless. I think in Loud and Clear, I refer to that as doism. When we take control, it's about doism, and it's and sometimes you have to be really quite, in my head, quite hard about that position. And again, that can get seen as difficult by other people.
I just think for me, I couldn't function without having good allies and good facilitators and people that can assist me to continue doing what I'm doing.